The distress call. The vast expanse of space stretched endlessly before Captain Elara Vega as she gazed out of the viewport of the Nebula Seeker. The sleek Earth vessel glided silently through the cosmic void, its advanced engines propelling it smoothly across uncharted sectors of the galaxy. Elara's dark eyes scanned the star-studded blackness, a mix of excitement and apprehension coursing through her veins. This deep space exploration mission was humanity's boldest venture yet, pushing the boundaries of known space further than ever before. "Captain, we're picking up an unusual signal." Lieutenant Kai Chen called out from his position at the communications console. His fingers danced across the holographic interface, brow furrowed in concentration. Elara turned, her long braids swaying with the movement. "What kind of signal, Kai? Can you isolate it?" "Working on it, Captain. It's unlike anything in our database. The encryption is extraordinary." Dr. Zara Okoy, the ship's xenolinguist, leaned over Kay's shoulder, her dark skin contrasting with the blue glow of the console. "Let me take a look. This pattern, it's not random. There's a structure here that suggests intelligence." As the crew worked to decipher the mysterious transmission, Elara felt a familiar tingle of anticipation. This was why she had joined the Earth Space Exploration course, the thrill of discovery, the unknown waiting to be unveiled. But with that excitement came caution. Humanity's first encounters with alien life had been peaceful, but they knew that the galaxy could be a dangerous place. "I've got it," Zara exclaimed suddenly, her eyes wide with excitement. "Captain, it's a distress call. An alien species is reaching out for help." The bridge fell silent as the gravity of the situation sank in. Elara straightened her uniform, a determined glint in her eye. "Play it, Doctor. Let's hear what they have to say." A haunting, melodic voice filled the bridge, speaking in a language none of them had ever heard before. Yet, thanks to the advanced translation algorithms Zara had developed, the message slowly became clear. "To any sentient beings who receive this message, we implore your aid. Our world, Zircon, faces annihilation at the hands of a relentless enemy. We are a peaceful people, ill-equipped for war. If there is compassion in your hearts, please help us. Our coordinates follow. We have little time left." As the message faded, Elara looked around at her crew. She saw determination in their eyes, mixed with the apprehension that came with facing the unknown. This was more than they had bargained for when they set out on their mission of exploration, but Elara knew there was only one choice to make. "Kai, plot a course to those coordinates." "Maximum speed," she ordered, her voice steady and resolute. "Zara, I want you to keep working on that language. By the time we arrive, I want us to be able to communicate clearly with these Zirconians." "Aye, Captain," came the chorus of responses. As the Nebula Seeker altered its course, surging towards the distress call's origin, Elara turned to her first officer, Commander Alexei Volkov. The burly Russian's face was set in grim determination. "Alexei, I need you to prepare the crew. We don't know what we're flying into, but we need to be ready for anything. Run battle drills, check our defensive systems. If these Zirconians are facing annihilation, we might be heading straight into a war zone." Alexei nodded, his steel-gray eyes reflecting the seriousness of the situation. "Understood, Captain. We'll be ready." As her crew sprang into action, Elara returned her gaze to the viewport. The stars seemed to stretch as the Nebula Seeker accelerated to faster-than-light speeds, racing towards an uncertain destiny. She couldn't help but wonder about the beings who had sent that desperate plea. What kind of civilization were they? And what terrifying force threatened their very existence? The journey to Zircon took 3 days at maximum speed. During that time, the crew of the Nebula Seeker prepared tirelessly. Weapon systems were checked and rechecked, shields were reinforced, and emergency protocols were drilled into every crew member. Zara worked around the clock, fine-tuning the translation algorithms and piecing together what she could of the Zirconian language from the limited data they had. As they approached the Zirconian star system, tension on the bridge was palpable. Ilara sat in the captain's chair, outwardly calm but inwardly churning with a mix of emotions. They were about to make first contact with an alien species in crisis. The stakes couldn't be higher. Dropping out of FTL in 3, 2, 1, the helmsman, Ensign Yuki Tanaka, announced. The view outside the ship shimmered and then snapped into focus. Before them lay a solar system dominated by a bright blue-white star. And orbiting that star, growing larger as they approached, was a planet that shimmered like a jewel in space. "My God," Alexei whispered, voicing the awe that everyone felt. "It's beautiful." Zircon was a sight to behold. Its surface was a swirling tapestry of iridescent colors, reminiscent of the opals found on Earth. Wispy clouds drifted in its atmosphere, and even from this distance, they could make out the glint of vast oceans. But the beauty of the scene was marred by an ominous presence. Surrounding the planet was a swarm of dark, angular ships. Their designs were utterly alien, all sharp edges and pulsing with an eerie, sickly green energy. "Hostile ships detected," Kay reported, his voice tense. "Hundreds of them, Captain. They're maintaining a blockade around the planet." Ilara's mind raced. They were vastly outnumbered, but they couldn't just turn back. Not when an entire civilization was counting on them. "Hail the planet," she ordered. "Let the Zirconians know we're here." Moments later, a response came through. The bridge's main viewscreen flickered to life, revealing a being unlike anything the human crew had ever seen. The Zirconian had a crystalline appearance, its body seeming to shimmer with internal light. Faceted eyes regarded them with a mix of hope and desperation. "Greetings, beings from beyond," the Zirconian spoke, its voice melodious even through the translation. "I am Lizera, speaker for the Zirconian Unity. You have our eternal gratitude for answering our call, but I fear you may have come only to witness our final moments." Ilara stood, facing the screen with determination. "I'm Captain Ilara Vega of the Earth ship Nebula Seeker. We're here to help, Speaker Lizera. Tell us what we're up against." Lizera's crystalline form seemed to dim slightly. "They call themselves the Void Swarm. They appeared in our system without warning, destroying our outer colonies before we even knew we were under attack. They consume everything in their path, resources, technology, even living beings. We've managed to hold them off with our planetary shields, but our energy reserves are nearly depleted. When the shields fail, the implications hung heavy in the air." Ilara exchanged glances with her crew, seeing her own resolve mirrored in their eyes. They all knew the risks, but they also knew they couldn't stand by and watch a peaceful civilization be exterminated. "We may be outnumbered," Ilara said, her voice ringing with conviction, "but humanity has faced long odds before. We didn't come all this way to give up without a fight. Speaker Lizera, we stand with Zircon. Together, we'll find a way to defeat this void swarm." For the first time, a flicker of hope seemed to illuminate Lizera's crystalline form. "Your courage honors us, Captain Vega. But how can one ship stand against such a swarm?" Ilara allowed herself a small, determined smile. "Sometimes, Speaker, all it takes is one ship to turn the tide. And who knows? We humans have a knack for pulling off the impossible." As if in response to her words, alarms suddenly blared across the bridge. Kay's voice cut through the noise, urgent and sharp. "Captain, the Void Swarm ships are moving. They're breaking formation, heading straight for us. Elara's eyes narrowed as she watched the swarm of enemy ships approaching on the tactical display. This was it, the moment of truth. Humanity's first major interstellar conflict was about to begin, with the fate of an entire alien civilization hanging in the balance. Battle stations. Elara commanded, her voice steady and strong. Shields up, weapons hot. Let's show these Void Swarm what happens when they mess with the wrong planet. As the crew rushed to their positions, Elara took one last look at the shimmering planet they had come to protect. Whatever happened next, she knew that the actions of the Nebula Seeker and her crew would echo across the stars. The battle for Zircon was about to begin, and with it, a new chapter in human history. First contact. As the Void Swarm ships approached, the bridge of the Nebula Seeker thrummed with tense energy. Captain Elara Vega stood at the center, her posture radiating calm authority despite the dire situation. Tactical analysis, Mr. Chen, she ordered, eyes fixed on the approaching enemy fleet. Kay's fingers danced across his console. The Void Swarm ships appear to be biomechanical in nature, Captain. Their hulls are absorbing our sensor scans, making it difficult to get a clear reading on their capabilities. Biomechanical. Dr. Zara Okoye mused, her scientific curiosity piqued even in the face of danger. That could explain their consumption behavior. They might literally be feeding on what they destroy. Elara nodded, her mind racing through potential strategies. Alexei, what's the status of our shields and weapons? Commander Volkov's deep voice resonated from the tactical station. Shields at maximum capacity, Captain. Phased plasma cannons charged and ready. Quantum torpedoes loaded. Good, Elara replied. We may be outnumbered, but we've got the element of surprise. They won't be expecting our level of technology. As the first wave of Void Swarm ships came within range, Elara made her decision. Evasive maneuvers, Ensign Tanaka. Alexei, target the lead ships. Let's see how they react to a little human ingenuity. The Nebula Seeker surged forward, its advanced engines allowing it to dance between the oncoming enemy vessels with a grace that belied its size. Streaks of brilliant energy lanced out from the human ship, striking the laid Void Swarm vessels. The biomechanical ships shuddered under the impact, their hulls crackling with disruptive energy. Direct hits. Alexei called out, a note of triumph in his voice. Their shields seem to be minimal, Captain. Our weapons are causing significant damage. For a moment, it seemed as though the human ship might be able to punch through the swarm's lines. But then, as if directed by a single mind, the Void Swarm ships adapted. They began moving in complex, unpredictable patterns, making targeting more difficult. Strange, organic-looking protrusions emerged from their hulls, pulsing with sickly green energy. Captain, they're firing, Kai warned. The space around the Nebula Seeker lit up with a barrage of energy bolts. Most splashed harmlessly against the ship's advanced shields, but the sheer volume of fire was concerning. Shields holding at 82%, Captain, Alexei reported. But we can't take sustained fire like this for long. Elara's mind raced. They needed a new strategy and fast. Zara, any progress on communicating with the Zirconians? The xenolinguist nodded emphatically. Yes, Captain. I believe I've established a stable communication link with their defense systems. Excellent work. Patch me through to Speaker Lizira. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the crystalline form of the Zirconian leader. Even through the alien features, Elara could see the mix of hope and fear in Lizira's faceted eyes. Speaker Lizira, Elara began, her voice steady despite the chaos of battle around them. We need to coordinate our efforts. Is there any way you can support us from the surface? Lizara's form shimmered with what might have been nervous energy. Our planetary defense systems are nearly depleted, Captain Vega. But there might be something. Our scientists have been working on a prototype weapon designed to disrupt the Void Swarm's biomechanical systems. It's untested, and using it would deplete the last of our shield energy. Elara didn't hesitate. Do it, Speaker. We'll cover you as best we can. As Lizara's image faded, Elara turned to her crew. All right, people. We need to buy the Zirconians time. Yuki, take us in close to the planet. Alexei, concentrate fire on any ships that try to break through to the surface. The Nebula Seeker dove toward Zircon, weaving through the swarm of enemy ships. Plasma bolts and quantum torpedoes lashed out, keeping the Void Swarm at bay. But for every ship they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Suddenly, the surface of Zircon lit up with a dazzling array of colors. A wave of energy unlike anything the human crew had ever seen burst forth from the planet, washing over the battlefield. The effect on the Void Swarm was immediate and dramatic. Their ships right as if in pain, organic components twisting and rupturing. Many of the smaller vessels simply disintegrated, while the larger ones drifted aimlessly, their systems in chaos. Now's our chance. Elara called out. Alexei, target the largest concentrations of disabled ships. Kai, send out a broad-spectrum electromagnetic pulse. Let's make sure they stay down. The Nebula Seeker's weapons blazed, tearing through the weakened Void Swarm defenses. The EMP burst further scrambled their systems, leaving the once fearsome Armada in disarray. As the last of the swarm ships in the immediate vicinity were neutralized, a cheer went up from the crew. But Elara knew the battle was far from over. Status report, she demanded, her voice cutting through the celebration. Alexei's response was grim. We've eliminated approximately 30% of the swarm forces in this sector, Captain. But long-range scans are picking up reinforcements entering the system. A lot of them. Elara's heart sank, but she kept her expression neutral for the sake of her crew. All right, we've fought ourselves some time. Now we need to make the most of it. Kai, re-establish communication with the planet. Speaker Lizara's image appeared once more on the view screen, the crystalline being's form noticeably dimmer than before. Captain Vega, Lizara's melodious voice was strained. Your assistance has been invaluable, but I fear it may not be enough. Our planetary shields are completely drained. We are defenseless. Elara leaned forward, her dark eyes intense. Not defenseless, Speaker. Not as long as we're here. But we need to know more about what we're facing. Can you send a delegation to our ship? We need to pool our knowledge and resources if we're going to have any chance against the next wave. Lizara seemed to consider for a moment before nodding. Yes, we will send our leading scientists and what's left of our defense council. But Captain, there's something you should know. The Void Swarm, they're not just here for our resources. They're after something specific. An artifact of immense power left behind by an ancient race we call the Precursors. We've managed to keep its location secret, but if the swarm obtains it, the implications hung heavy in the air. Elara shared a concerned look with her senior staff before turning back to Lizara. We understand, Speaker. We'll do everything in our power to prevent that from happening. Prepare your delegation. We'll beam them aboard immediately. As the communication ended, Elara turned to her crew. All right, people. We've got a lot of work to do, and not much time to do it. Zara, I want you to work with the Zirconian scientists. Find out everything you can about this artifact and the Void Swarm. Kai, coordinate with their defense council. We need to integrate our systems if we're going to stand a chance. Alexei, you're with me. We need to come up with a battle strategy that accounts for every ship and weapon we've got." The crew sprang into action, their earlier weariness forgotten in the face of this new challenge. As Elara watched them work, she felt a swell of pride. This was humanity at its best, adaptable, ingenious, and unwavering in the face of impossible odds. Within the hour, the Zirconian delegation materialized on the Nebula Seeker's transport pad. The human crew couldn't help but stare in wonder at the crystalline beings, their bodies shimmering with internal light in a rainbow of colors. Elara stepped forward to greet them, extending her hand in the human gesture of welcome. "On behalf of Earth and her colonies, welcome aboard the Nebula Seeker. I'm Captain Elara Vega." The lead Zirconian, its form a deep sapphire blue, reached out a faceted appendage to meet Elara's hand. The touch was cool and smooth, like polished stone. "I am Zenith, Chief Scientist of Zircon. Your hospitality honors us, Captain Vega. We only wish our meeting could be under better circumstances." As the delegation was led to the ship's conference room, Elara couldn't help but marvel at the strange twists of fate that had brought them to this moment. Humanity, in its first major venture beyond known space, thrust into an interstellar conflict they barely understood. And yet there was something exhilarating about it all. This was the stuff of legends, of the stories that had inspired her to reach for the stars in the first place. In the conference room, humans and Zirconians gathered around a large holographic display of the Zircon system. Zenith stepped forward, its crystalline form glittering under the ship's lights. "The artifact we spoke of," Zenith began, its voice a melodious chime, "is known to us as the Nexus Key. According to our most ancient legends, it was created by the precursors as a tool to reshape reality itself. We have safeguarded it for millennia, never daring to use its power." Dr. Okoye leaned forward, her scientific curiosity piqued. "And you believe this is what the Void Swarm is after? Do they know how to use it?" Zenith's form dimmed slightly, a sign of distress. "We do not know. But the Void Swarm's actions suggest they at least know of its existence. If they were to obtain it, then we make sure they don't," Elara interjected firmly. "Now let's talk strategy. What are we working with?" For the next several hours, humans and Zirconians worked tirelessly, sharing knowledge and technology. The Zirconians marveled at humanity's adaptable, innovative approach to problem-solving, while the humans were in awe of the Zirconians' deep understanding of energy manipulation and quantum mechanics. As the meeting wound down, a plan began to take shape. It was risky, borderline insane by most standards, but it was the best chance they had. Elara stood, addressing the mixed group of humans and aliens. "All right, here's what we're going to do. We'll use the Nebula Seeker's advanced cloaking technology to sneak a team down to the planet's surface. Their job will be to secure the Nexus Key and, if possible, find a way to use it against the Void Swarm. Meanwhile, we'll work with the Zirconians to modify our shields and weapons, integrating their energy manipulation techniques to make them more effective against the Swarm's biomechanical ships." She paused, looking around the room. "I won't lie to you. The odds are stacked against us. But together, I believe we have a fighting chance. Humanity has always thrived when pushed to its limits, and I have a feeling our new Zirconian friends are made of equally stern stuff. So let's get to work. We've got a planet to save and a galaxy to protect." As the meeting adjourned and preparations began in earnest, Elara couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. They were about to attempt the impossible, but isn't that what humans did best? With determination in her heart and the combined ingenuity of two species at her disposal, she was ready to face whatever the Void Swarm threw at them. The battle for Zircon, and perhaps the fate of the galaxy, was about to enter its most crucial phase. The battle begins. The tension aboard the Nebula Seeker was palpable as the combined human-Zirconian team made final preparations for their daring plan. Captain Ilara Vega stood at the center of the bridge, her dark eyes fixed on the swirling, opalescent surface of Zircon below. The planet's beauty was marred by the ominous presence of the regrouping Void Swarm fleet, their biomechanical ships pulsing with an eerie, sickly green light. Cloaking device engaged, Captain Ensign Yuki Tanaka reported from the helm, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "We're invisible to their sensors." Ilara nodded, her expression a mask of determination. "Excellent. Kai, what's the status of our away team?" Lieutenant Chen's response was immediate. "Commander Volkov and Dr. Okoy are in the transporter room with the Zirconian scientist, Prism. They're ready to beam down on your order." "Very good," Ilara said, taking a deep breath. This was it, the moment that could decide the fate of not just Zircon, but potentially the entire galaxy. "Alexei, Zara, Prism, you have a go. May the stars watch over you." On the transporter pad, Commander Alexei Volkov checked his phaser one last time. Beside him, Dr. Zara Okoy clutched a modified tricorder, specially calibrated to detect the unique energy signature of the Nexus key. The Zirconian scientist, Prism, shimmered with nervous energy, its crystalline form refracting the light in dazzling patterns. "Energize," Alexei commanded, his deep voice steady despite the gravity of their mission. In a shimmer of light, the away team vanished from the Nebula Seeker, rematerializing moments later in a vast, crystal-lined cavern deep beneath Zircon's surface. The air hummed with an otherworldly energy, making the hairs on the back of Alexei's neck stand on end. "By the cosmic egg," Prism whispered, its melodious voice filled with awe. "I never thought I'd see the Vault of Ages with my own facets." Zara's eyes widened as she took in their surroundings. The cavern walls were lined with intricate, glowing symbols that seemed to shift and change as she looked at them. "This is incredible," she breathed. "The amount of information stored here, it could revolutionize our understanding of the universe." "Focus, Doctor," Alexei reminded her gently. "We're here for the Nexus key. Prism, which way?" The Zirconian scientist extended a crystalline appendage, pointing towards a narrow passageway that led deeper into the complex. "This way, but be warned, the vault is protected by ancient security measures. We must tread carefully." As the team made their way through the twisting corridors of the vault, Zara's tricorder began to pick up increasingly strong energy readings. "We're getting close," she reported, her voice hushed with excitement and trepidation. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. Alexei's hand flew to his communicator. "Volkov to Nebula Seeker." "Captain, what's happening up there?" Ilara's voice came through, tense and filled with static. "The Void Swarm has begun their assault. Our cloaking device is holding for now, but we're detecting massive energy buildups. They're throwing everything they have at the planet." Alexei's expression hardened. "Understood, Captain. We'll double-time it." Volkov out. He turned to his companions. "We need to move faster. The swarm's attack has begun." They pushed on, the urgency of their mission driving them forward. Finally, they emerged into a vast domed chamber. At its center, floating in a column of pulsing energy, was an object that defied description. It seemed to shift and change as they looked at it, sometimes appearing as a crystalline key, other times as a swirling vortex of pure energy. The Nexus key, Prism breathed, its form glowing with reverence. Zara's tricorder was going haywire, unable to process the readings it was receiving. The power emanating from that thing, it's off the charts. If the Void Swarm gets their hands on this— "They won't," Alexei said firmly. He stepped towards the energy column, but Prism's crystalline arm shot out, stopping him. "Wait," the Zirconian scientist warned. "The security system. Only one who truly understands the nature of the key can approach it safely." Alexei turned to Prism, his steel gray eyes intense. "Then it has to be you. We'll cover you." Prism's form shimmered with what might have been fear, but the Zirconian steadied itself and moved towards the Nexus key. As it approached, symbols on the chamber walls began to glow more brightly, pulsing in complex patterns. Suddenly, a booming voice filled the chamber, speaking in a language none of them understood. Prism responded, its melodious voice rising and falling in what seemed to be a ritual call and response. "What's happening?" Zara whispered to Alexei, her eyes wide. "I think," Alexei replied slowly, "we're witnessing a test. The vault is determining if Prism is worthy to wield the key." The exchange continued for what felt like an eternity, the energy in the room building to an almost unbearable intensity. Then, with a final, resonant word from Prism, the column of energy surrounding the Nexus key dissipated. Prism reached out, its crystalline form trembling slightly, and grasped the key. The moment it made contact, a wave of energy pulsed outward, nearly knocking Alexei and Zara off their feet. I can feel its power," Prism said, its voice filled with wonder and a hint of fear. "It's like holding a star in my grasp." Before they could celebrate their success, Alexei's communicator crackled to life. "Volkov, do you have the key?" Alara's voice was urgent, the sound of alarms blaring in the background. "Affirmative, Captain. We have it. What's the situation?" "Critical," came the terse reply. "Our cloak is failing, and the swarm has broken through Zircon's outer defenses. We need that key now." Alexei's mind raced. "Understood, Captain. Prepare for emergency beam-out." He turned to his companions. "Looks like our exit strategy just got a lot more complicated. Prism, can you use the key to get us out of here?" The Zirconian scientist's form pulsed with uncertainty. I can try. The legends speak of the key's ability to bend space and time, but I've never." "Now would be a good time to test those legends," Zara said, her voice tight with urgency. Prism nodded, or at least made a motion that seemed equivalent, and raised the Nexus key. The artifact began to glow, pulsing with an otherworldly light that seemed to bend the very fabric of reality around them. "Focus on the nebula seeker," Alexei instructed. "Visualize it clearly in your mind." As Prism concentrated, the air around them began to shimmer and distort. Alexei felt a sensation like he was being stretched and compressed simultaneously. Then, with a flash of blinding light and a sensation of falling through an endless void, they vanished from the vault of ages. They rematerialized on the bridge of the Nebula Seeker, causing a moment of startled confusion among the crew. Alara recovered quickly, her eyes widening at the sight of the Nexus key in Prism's grasp. "Report," she demanded, even as she motioned for Alexei to take his station. "We have the key, Captain," Alexei confirmed, moving swiftly to the tactical console. "But we're not out of the woods yet." Indeed, the view screen showed a scene of chaos. The Void Swarm ships were swarming around Zircon, their weapons tearing into the planet's weakened defenses. The Nebula Seeker's cloak had failed completely, and enemy vessels were already moving to intercept them. "Shields at 60% and falling," Kay reported, his fingers flying over his console. "We can't take much more of this, Captain." Ilara's mind raced, weighing their options. They had the Nexus key, but no clear idea of how to use it effectively against the swarm. Meanwhile, Zircon was on the brink of destruction, and the Nebula Seeker wasn't far behind. "Prism," she said, turning to the Zirconian scientist. That key is our only hope. Can you use it to stop the swarm? Prism's crystalline form pulsed with uncertainty. Captain, the power of the key is beyond anything I've ever encountered. To use it without proper understanding could have catastrophic consequences. And if we do nothing, an entire civilization will be wiped out, Alara countered. Sometimes we have to take risks. As if to emphasize her point, the ship rocked violently as a void swarm energy blast struck their shields. Warning klaxons flared across the bridge. Shields at 40%. Kai shouted over the noise. We can't take another hit like that. Alara made her decision. Prism, we're out of options. Use the key. Focus on disabling the swarm ships, like your planet's weapon did earlier. The Zirconian scientist hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Raising the Nexus key, Prism began to concentrate, its crystalline form glowing brighter and brighter. The key pulsed with energy, and for a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like a wave rippling out from the nebula seeker, a burst of golden energy washed over the battlefield. Where it touched the void swarm ships, they seemed to freeze in place, their sickly green glow fading. It's working, Zara exclaimed, watching the sensor readings in amazement. The swarm ships, they're shutting down. But their celebration was short-lived. As quickly as it had appeared, the golden energy dissipated. The void swarm ships, though temporarily stalled, began to power up again. No, Prism cried out, its form dimming with exhaustion. I can't control it. The power is too vast, too complex. Alara's mind raced. They had seen a glimpse of the key's potential, but without full control, it wasn't enough to turn the tide. They needed something more, something. Her eyes widened as an idea struck her. It was risky, perhaps even crazy, but it might be their only chance. Prism, she said, her voice filled with determination. You said the key can bend space and time, right? Can you use it to open a communication channel? Not just to the swarm, but to every sentient species in this sector of the galaxy. The Zirconian scientist looked confused but nodded slowly. I believe so, Captain. But why? A small, determined smile played on Alara's lips. Because we're about to remind the galaxy of an important lesson, one that humanity learned long ago. United we stand, divided we fall. As Prism raised the Nexus key once more, focusing on Alara's request, the captain of the Nebula Seeker prepared herself for the most important speech of her life, one that could determine not just the fate of Zircon, but the future of galactic civilization itself. The battle for Zircon had taken an unexpected turn, and the next few moments would decide whether it ended in triumph or tragedy. Technological innovation. As the Nexus key pulsed with otherworldly energy, Captain Alara Vega felt a strange sensation wash over her. It was as if she could suddenly sense countless minds across the vastness of space, all connected in this moment by the power of the ancient artifact. Taking a deep breath, she began to speak, her words carried across light years by the key's incredible power. To all sentient beings who can hear this message, I am Captain Alara Vega of the Earth ship Nebula Seeker. We stand at a crossroads that will determine the fate of not just one world, but potentially our entire galaxy. As she spoke, images began to form in the minds of all those connected by the key's power. They saw Zircon, beautiful and besieged. They saw the Void Swarm, a cancerous blight spreading across the stars. And they saw the Nebula Seeker, a lone ship standing defiant against overwhelming odds. We face an enemy that threatens not just one species, but all life as we know it. The Void Swarm consumes without thought, destroys without remorse. If they are not stopped here, at Zircon, they will spread across the galaxy, leaving nothing but empty husks of whorls in their wake. Ilara's voice grew stronger, filled with passion and determination. But we are not powerless. United, we have the strength to push back the darkness. I call upon you now, all races, all civilizations. Stand with us. Send what ships you can spare. Share what knowledge you possess. Together, we can forge a future where the light of civilization burns bright against the void. As her words echoed across the stars, the bridge of the nebula seeker fell silent. For a moment, it seemed as though nothing had changed. The void swarm continued its relentless assault, Zircon's defenses crumbling under the onslaught. Then, like a spark igniting a flame, responses began to pour in. This is High Commander Zix of the Aetherian Concordat. Our battle fleet stands ready to assist. Matriarch Tilara of the Aseri Republics. Our most advanced dreadnoughts are en route to your position. Hive Queen Ziktik of the Three Kreen Collective. Our swarms will blot out their stars. Message after message flooded in, each one bringing a surge of hope to the beleaguered defenders of Zircon. Ships of all shapes and sizes began to appear at the edges of the system, a kaleidoscope of civilizations united against a common threat. Ilara turned to her crew, her eyes shining with fierce determination. This is our chance. We need to coordinate this fleet and find a way to stop the swarm once and for all. She focused her attention on Dr. Zara Okoy and the Zirconian scientist, Prism. You two have the most knowledge of the Nexus Key and the Void Swarm's biology. I need you to find a weakness we can exploit. As Zara and Prism hurried off to the science lab, Ilara turned to her tactical officer. Alexei, coordinate with the incoming Allied ships. We need to form a defensive perimeter around Zircon while our scientists work. Commander Volkov nodded grimly. Aye, Captain. It'll be like herding cats, but we'll make it work. The next few hours were a blur of activity. The Nebula Seeker became the nerve center of the most diverse fleet the galaxy had ever seen. Ships that would have been mortal enemies under normal circumstances now fought side by side against the Void Swarm. In the science lab, Zara and Prism worked feverishly, analyzing data from the Nexus Key and samples of destroyed swarm ships. They were joined by scientists from a dozen different species, each bringing unique perspectives and knowledge to the problem. Look at this, Zara said, pointing to a holographic display of a swarm ship's cellular structure. The biomechanical components are connected by these strange energy conduits. They almost look like neural pathways, finished Andrak, a multi-limbed Vexteri scientist. It's as if each ship is a single, enormous neuron. Prism's crystalline form pulsed with excitement. And if they function like neurons, then they must be part of a larger neural network. Zara exclaimed. The entire swarm could be one massive, distributed consciousness. This realization sparked a flurry of new ideas. If the swarm was indeed a single entity spread across many ships, then perhaps they could use that connection against it. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Ilara and Alexei coordinated the Allied fleet's efforts. The tide of battle had shifted, with the Void Swarm now on the defensive. But every ship they destroyed was quickly replaced by two more, emerging from the depths of space like a never-ending plague. Captain, Kai called out, his voice tense. I'm detecting massive energy buildups within the swarm ships. I think they're preparing for something big. Before Ilara could respond, the lab team burst onto the bridge, led by an excited Zara and Prism. Captain, we've got it, Zara announced breathlessly. We know how to stop the swarm. Ilara raised an eyebrow, hope warring with caution in her expression. I'm listening, Doctor. Zara quickly explained their findings about the swarm's neural network structure. If we can create a massive, synchronized electromagnetic pulse, tuned to the specific frequency of their neural pathways, we might be able to disrupt the entire swarm at once. Like giving a galaxy-sized brain an aneurysm, Alexei mused, his tactical mind already considering the implications. Prism stepped forward, the Nexus key glowing softly in its grasp. The key can amplify and distribute the pulse across the entire swarm instantaneously. But generating a pulse of that magnitude will require the combined power of every ship in the Allied fleet, Alara finished, understanding dawning in her eyes. It was an audacious plan, one that would leave them completely vulnerable if it failed. But if it worked, how long do you need to set it up? She asked. Zara and Prism exchanged glances. An hour, maybe two, Zara replied. We'll need to modify the shields of every ship in the fleet to generate the pulse. Alara nodded decisively. Do it. Kai, send out the specifications to the Allied fleet. Alexei, coordinate our defenses. We need to buy them time. As the scientists rushed back to the lab to finalize their preparations, the battle outside intensified. The Void Swarm, sensing the Allies' renewed determination, pressed their attack with increased ferocity. Ships on both sides exploded in silent bursts of fire and debris, the void of space lit up by the fury of combat. On the Nebula Seeker's bridge, Alara watched the ebb and flow of battle with a mixture of pride and concern. The Allied fleet fought with incredible bravery, races that had been bitter enemies now protecting each other without hesitation. But the swarm's numbers seemed endless, and for every ship they destroyed, the Allies lost one of their own. Shields at 30%, Captain K reported, his voice strained. We can't take much more of this. Alara gripped the arms of her chair, her knuckles white. Hold position. We just need to give them a little more time. As if in answer to her words, Zara's voice came over the comm. Captain, we're ready. The pulse generator is online. A surge of hope ran through the bridge crew. This was it, their one chance to end this threat once and for all. All Allied ships, this is Captain Vega. Alara broadcast to the fleet. Divert all power to your shield generators and prepare to initiate the pulse on my mark. She turned to Prism, who stood ready with the Nexus key. Are you ready? The Zirconian scientist's crystalline form shimmered with determination. I am, Captain. May the wisdom of the precursors guide us. The Lara took a deep breath, acutely aware that the next few moments would determine the fate of not just Zircon, but potentially the entire galaxy. All ships, mark. In that instant, several things happened at once. Every ship in the Allied fleet glowed with power as they channeled all their energy into their shield generators. The Nexus key in Prism's grasp blazed with blinding light, its power amplifying and distributing the pulse across space. And then, like a silent thunderclap, the electromagnetic pulse burst forth. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The Void Swarm ships continued their relentless assault, seemingly unaffected. Alara felt her heart sink. Had they miscalculated? Had all their efforts been for nothing? Then, one by one, the swarm ships began to falter. Their movements became erratic, their weapons fire went wild. Some simply shut down, drifting lifelessly in space. Others turned on each other, firing blindly in their confusion. It's working. Alexei shouted, unable to contain his excitement. The swarm is falling apart. Cheers erupted across the bridge, echoed by triumphant cries from the Allied fleet. The Void Swarm, that terrifying force that had threatened to consume the galaxy, was disintegrating before their eyes. But their celebration was cut short as alarms blared across the Nebula Seeker. Captain, Kai called out, his voice urgent. The swarm ships, they're overloading. The pulse must have triggered some kind of self-destruct mechanism. Alara's eyes widened in horror as she realized the implications. With a number of swarm ships in the system, their combined detonation could potentially destroy Zircon and a good portion of the Allied fleet. "All ships, clear the blast radius," she ordered. "Get as far away from the swarm ships as you can." But even as the Allied fleet scrambled to retreat, Alara knew it wouldn't be enough. There were too many swarm ships, too widely spread. The impending explosion would devastate the system. In that moment of crisis, Prism stepped forward, the Nexus key glowing with an intensity that was almost painful to look at. "Captain," the Zirconian scientist said, its voice filled with a strange calm, "I know what I must do." Before anyone could react, Prism raised the key high. The artifact pulsed once, twice, and then released a wave of energy that engulfed the entire battlefield. In an instant, every Void Swarm ship vanished, transported to the depths of intergalactic space, where their destruction would harm no one. The effort, however, proved too much for Prism. As the last swarm ship disappeared, the Zirconian scientist collapsed, the Nexus key falling from its grasp. Alara rushed to Prism's side, cradling the crystalline being in her arms. "Prism, what did you do?" Prism's form flickered weakly. "What needed to be done, Captain?" "The key, it showed me the way. But its power was too much for me to contain." As the Zirconian's light began to fade, Alara felt a lump form in her throat. This brave scientist had given everything to save not just Zircon, but countless worlds across the galaxy. "Thank you, Prism," she whispered. "Your sacrifice will never be forgotten." As Prism's form dimmed for the final time, a solemn hush fell over the bridge. They had won the battle, saved Zircon, and quite possibly the galaxy. But the cost had been high. Alara stood slowly, her face a mask of determination tinged with sorrow. "Send word to the Allied fleet and to Zircon. The threat is over. We've won." As messages of victory and gratitude poured in from across the galaxy, Alara gazed out at the star-filled expanse before them. The battle was over, but she knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy had changed irrevocably today. New alliances had been forged in the crucible of combat, and humanity had proven itself on an interstellar stage. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, a united galaxy, standing strong against the darkness of space. The final stand. The aftermath of the battle brought a mixture of jubilation and solemn reflection to the Allied fleet. As ships began the process of damage assessment and repair, the Nebula Seeker became a hub of activity. Representatives from dozens of species converged on the human vessel, eager to meet the crew that had played such a pivotal role in their victory. Captain Alara Vega stood at the center of it all, coordinating relief efforts, managing diplomatic exchanges, and trying to make sense of the monumental events that had transpired. The loss of Prism weighed heavily on her heart, a stark reminder of the cost of their victory. As she gazed out at the swirling, opalescent surface of Zircon, now free from the shadow of the Void Swarm, Alara felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to find Dr. Zara Okoye, her eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and concern. "Captain, you need to see this," Zara said, her voice hushed. "It's about the Nexus key." Alara followed Zara to the science lab, where a team of multi-species scientists had been studying the artifact since the battle's end. The key floated in a containment field, pulsing with an inner light that seemed to have intensified since Prism's final act. "What am I looking at, Doctor?" Alara asked, her brow furrowed. Zara pointed to a series of holographic readouts surrounding the key. "The artifact's energy levels are off the charts, Captain. It's as if Prism's actions didn't deplete its power, but instead awakened it somehow." Andrak, the Vextary scientist, chimed in, his multiple limbs gesticulating excitedly. We believe the key is responding to the united thoughts and emotions of all the species gathered here. It's evolving. Ilara's mind raced with the implications. Evolving into what, exactly? Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Ilara's comm crackled to life with Kay's urgent voice. Captain to the bridge immediately. We have a situation. Ilara sprinted to the bridge, her heart pounding. As she burst through the doors, she was met with a scene of controlled chaos. The view-screen showed a terrifying sight. A massive tear in the fabric of space itself, swirling with dark energy. Report. Ilara barked, taking her place in the captain's chair. Alexi's voice was tense as he responded. Long-range sensors detected a massive energy surge at the edge of the system. Then this appeared. It's some kind of spatial anomaly, unlike anything we've ever seen. As they watched, shapes began to emerge from the tier. At first, they looked like void swarm ships, but larger and more menacing. Then, to everyone's horror, the shapes began to merge and transform, coalescing into a single gigantic entity. By the cosmic egg, Kai whispered, his face pale. It's like a void swarm world ship. The monstrosity that emerged from the spatial tear defied description. It was as large as a small moon, its surface a writhing mass of biomechanical components. Tendrils of dark energy whipped around it, reaching out hungrily towards Zircon and the Allied fleet. Ilara's mind raced. They had just survived one seemingly impossible battle, and now they faced an even greater threat. But this time, they weren't alone. Hail the Allied fleet, she ordered, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her gut. And get me Speaker Lizara on Zircon. As the communications were established, Ilara addressed the assembled forces. To all ships and to the people of Zircon. We face a threat beyond anything we could have imagined. But we've proven that together we can overcome impossible odds. I ask you now to stand with us once more. Not just for Zircon, but for every world that would fall if this abomination is allowed to spread. There was a moment of silence, then a chorus of affirmations flooded the comms. Ships of all sizes and configurations moved into defensive formations around Zircon. On the planet's surface, Speaker Lizira's crystalline form shimmered with determination. Zircon stands with you, Captain Vega, Lizira declared. Our remaining planetary defenses are at your disposal. As the Allied fleet prepared for battle, the Void Swarm world ship made its move. Beams of corrosive dark energy lanced out, tearing through the outer defensive lines. Ships exploded in silent bursts of fire, their crews vaporized in an instant. Evasive maneuvers, Ilara shouted. All ships, concentrate fire on those energy projectors. The Nebula Seeker dove and weaved through the chaos, its advanced engines allowing it to stay just ahead of the devastating energy beams. Around them, the Allied fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma torpedoes, quantum disruptors, and weapons beyond human understanding all converged on the world ship. For a moment, it seemed as though their combined firepower might be having an effect. The world ship's outer layers buckled under the assault, dark ichor spewing from its wounds. But then, to everyone's horror, the damaged sections began to regenerate, growing back even stronger than before. It's adapting to our weapons. Alexei reported, his voice tight with frustration. Every time we damage it, it comes back stronger. Ilara's mind raced, searching for a solution. They couldn't outlast this monster, and their most powerful weapons were proving ineffective. There had to be another way. Suddenly, Zara's voice cut through the chaos. Captain, the Nexus key, it's reacting to the world ship's presence. Ilara's eyes widened as an idea formed. It was risky, perhaps even suicidal, but it might be their only chance. Zara, bring the key to the bridge. Now. As Zara rushed to comply, Ilara turned to her helm officer. Yuki, plot a course straight for the center of that thing. We're going to hit it with everything we've got. Captain. Alexei questioned, concern evident in his voice. Ilara's expression was grim but determined. If we can't destroy it from the outside, we'll have to do it from within. The key is our only hope of penetrating its defenses. As the Nebula Seeker accelerated towards the monstrous world ship, Ilara opened a channel to the Allied fleet. All ships, this is Captain Vega. We're making a run on the world ship's core. Give us everything you've got to clear a path. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Ships from a dozen different species converged on the world ship, unleashing a barrage that would have annihilated a small planet. Under this covering fire, the Nebula Seeker streaked towards its target, dodging tendrils of dark energy and clouds of corrosive spores. Zara arrived on the bridge, the Nexus key pulsing with intense light in her hands. Captain, the key's energy levels are still climbing. I don't know if we can control it. We don't need to control it, Ilara replied, her eyes fixed on the approaching world ship. We just need to unleash it. As they neared their target, a massive maw opened in the world ship's surface. A defensive response or an attempt to swallow them whole, Ilara couldn't be sure. But it was the opening they needed. Take us in, Yuki, Ilara commanded. All power to forward shields. The Nebula Seeker plunged into the world ship's maw, immediately engulfed by a nightmarish landscape of pulsing organic matter and twisted metal. Caustic fluids splashed against their shields, alarms blaring as the ship systems were pushed to their limits. Shields at 20% and falling. Kai shouted over the cacophony. We can't take much more of this. Ilara gripped the arms of her chair, her knuckles white. Just a little further. We need to reach the core. As if in response to her words, the passageway ahead suddenly widened, revealing a vast chamber at the heart of the world ship. At its center pulsed a mass of dark energy, the source of the monstrosity's power. There, Ilara pointed. Zara, the key. Dr. Okoye stepped forward, raising the Nexus key high. The artifact blazed with blinding light, its power resonating with the dark energy of the world ship's core. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a sound like reality itself tearing apart, a beam of pure white energy burst forth from the key. The beam struck the world ship's core, and the effect was immediate and catastrophic. Dark energy and light collided in a cataclysmic reaction, sending shockwaves throughout the massive structure. The chamber around them began to collapse, entire sections of the world ship tearing themselves apart. Get us out of here, Yuki, Ilara shouted. Maximum speed. The Nebula Seeker turned on a dime, its engines straining as it raced back the way it had come. Behind them, the world ship was consuming itself, the reaction spreading outward from its core like a cancer. Triumph of unity. In the days following the destruction of the Void Swarm world ship, the Zircon system became a hub of unprecedented interstellar activity. Ships from dozens of species filled the orbital lanes, their crews working tirelessly to clear debris, treat the wounded, and begin the process of rebuilding. On the planet's surface, the crystalline cities of the Zirconians glittered with renewed hope, their opalescent towers reaching towards the stars that no longer held terror but promise. Aboard the Nebula Seeker, Captain Ilara Vega stood before a gathering unlike any in known galactic history. The ship's largest conference room had been transformed into an impromptu council chamber, with representatives from every species that had answered the call to defend Zircon. The air hummed with a babble of languages, all seamlessly translated by the advanced systems of the human vessel. At the center of it all, floating in a containment field, was the Nexus key. Its soft glow seemed to pulse in time with the ebb and flow of conversation around it, as if listening and learning. Ilara cleared her throat, and a hush fell over the assembled delegates. "Friends, allies, fellow sentients," she began, her voice carrying the weight of recent events. "We stand here today as the survivors and victors of a conflict that threatened not just one world, but the very fabric of our galaxy. The Void Swarm sought to consume all in its path, to reduce the rich tapestry of our civilizations to nothing more than fuel for its insatiable hunger." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the diverse gathering. But in the face of this threat, we did not falter. We did not retreat into isolation, hoping to weather the storm alone. Instead, we came together. Species that had never met, civilizations separated by vast gulfs of space and culture, all united against a common foe. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Ilara continued, her voice growing stronger. "Our victory was not won through overwhelming firepower or technological superiority alone. It was our unity, our willingness to stand together despite our differences, that allowed us to triumph where any one of us alone might have fallen." She gestured to the Nexus key, floating serenely at the center of the gathering. This artifact, this legacy of an ancient race, played a crucial role in our victory. Its power is beyond our full understanding, but one thing is clear. It responds to our collective will, our shared desire for peace and cooperation. The Aetherian High Commander, Zix, stepped forward, his ethereal form shimmering with barely contained energy. "The question before us, then, is what we do with this power. How do we ensure it is not misused or falls into the wrong hands?" Matriarch Tilara of the Asuri Republics nodded in agreement, her ageless features creased with concern. The temptation to use such power for one's own benefit would be immense. No single species can be trusted with it entirely. A heated debate began to unfold, with various factions arguing for control or study of the key. Some advocated for its destruction, fearing its power was too great a risk. Others saw it as a tool to revolutionize their civilizations, to solve problems that had plagued their worlds for millennia. As the arguments grew more intense, Ilara noticed something strange. The Nexus key's glow had begun to fluctuate, growing brighter with each heated exchange, and dimming during moments of thoughtful discussion. She shared a worried glance with Dr. Zara Okoi, who nodded in silent understanding. "Everyone, please," Ilara called out, raising her hands for silence. "Look at the key. It's reacting to our discord. I think it's trying to tell us something." As the room quieted, the key's glow stabilized. Then, to everyone's astonishment, it began to project a series of images into the air around it. They saw flashes of ancient civilizations rising and falling, of cosmic cataclysms and moments of profound beauty. Through it all, a message seemed to crystallize: unity in diversity, strength through cooperation. Speaker Lizura of the Zirconians stepped forward, her crystalline form refracting the key's light in dazzling patterns. "I believe I understand," she said, her melodious voice filled with awe. "The key is not meant to be a weapon or a tool for any one species. It's a symbol, a reminder of what we can achieve when we work together." Ilara nodded slowly, an idea forming. What if we use the key as the foundation for something new? Not a weapon or a source of power, but a symbol of our newfound unity. The idea took hold, spreading through the gathering like wildfire. Over the next several hours, a plan began to take shape. The Nexus key would become the cornerstone of a new galactic alliance, one dedicated to mutual defense, scientific cooperation, and cultural exchange. A massive space station would be constructed in the Zircon system, designed to house representatives from all member species. The key would be housed at its heart, not as a source of power, but as a reminder of the strength found in unity. The station would serve as a neutral ground for diplomacy, a center for collaborative research, and a beacon of hope for the galaxy. As the details were hammered out, Ilara couldn't help but marvel at the scene before her. Species that had been strangers mere days ago were now working together, sharing ideas, and building the foundation for a new era of galactic cooperation. The Vextari offered their expertise in adaptive architecture to design the station. The Asari proposed advanced diplomatic protocols to ensure fair representation. The Etherian Concordat pledged their vast energy production capabilities to power the massive structure. And humanity, the newcomers who had played such a pivotal role, offered their innovative spirit and adaptability to help bring it all together. As the conference drew to a close, a name for this new alliance was proposed: the Galactic Concordat. Its charter, drafted in those historic hours aboard the Nebula Seeker, laid out a vision for a united galaxy, one that celebrated diversity while working towards common goals. With the broad strokes of the plan in place, the various representatives prepared to return to their homeworlds, ready to begin the work of building this new future. But before they departed, Ilara had one last task to perform. She approached the Nexus key, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. With careful reverence, she deactivated the containment field and took the artifact in her hands. Its power thrummed through her, not threatening or overwhelming, but warm and reassuring. In the name of all sentient beings, she proclaimed, her voice carrying to every corner of the room, "I dedicate this Nexus key to our shared future. May it stand as a testament to what we can achieve together, and a bulwark against the darkness that would divide us." With those words, she placed the key in a specially designed receptacle, one that would eventually be integrated into the heart of the new galactic station. As it settled into place, its glow intensified, bathing the room in a warm, golden light that seemed to fill everyone present with a sense of hope and purpose. In the weeks and months that followed, the Zircon system became a hive of activity. Construction on the massive space station began, with ships and crews from across the galaxy contributing their unique skills and technologies. The Nebula Seeker, recognized as the catalyst for this new era, was assigned as the temporary headquarters for the Galactic Concordat's organizing committee. Ilara found herself at the center of it all, her role evolving from starship captain to diplomat and visionary leader. It was a position she had never sought, but one she embraced with the same determination that had seen her through the battle against the Void Swarm. One evening, as she stood in her ready room aboard the Nebula Seeker, gazing out at the bustling construction efforts, Ilara was joined by Dr. Zara Okoy and Commander Alexei Volkov. "Quite a view, isn't it?" Zara mused, her eyes wide with wonder. "To think, just a short while ago, we were alone out here, unsure if we'd ever make it back home." Alexei nodded, a rare smile softening his usually stern features. "And now we're helping to build a new home for the entire galaxy. It's almost too much to believe." Ilara turned to her friends and colleagues, feeling a surge of pride and affection. None of this would have been possible without this crew, without the risks we took, and the trust we placed in each other, and in our new allies. "So what comes next, Captain?" Alexei asked, his tone making it clear that the question was about more than just their immediate plans. Ilara's gaze returned to the viewport, to the shimmering surface of Zircon below, and the vast expanse of stars beyond. "We keep exploring," she said softly. "There's still so much out there we don't understand. New wonders to discover, new challenges to face. But now we face them together as part of something greater than ourselves." She turned back to her officers, her expression resolute. The Nebula Seeker was meant to be a ship of exploration, and that's what we'll return to. But now we'll be explorers and ambassadors, carrying the ideals of the Concordat to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Zara's eyes lit up with excitement. Just think of the scientific discoveries we could make with the combined knowledge of so many species. The mysteries we could unravel. And the security we can provide, Alexei added, ever the tactical thinker. A united galaxy stands a much better chance against threats like the Void Swarm, whatever form they might take in the future. Ilara nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Exactly. We've been given an incredible opportunity here, not just for humanity, but for all sentient life. It's up to us to make the most of it. As they continued to discuss the future, Ilara's comm unit chimed. It was a message from Speaker Lazira, inviting her to a ceremony on Zircon's surface. The Zirconians wished to honor the crew of the Nebula Seeker and officially recognize humanity's role in saving their world and ushering in this new era of cooperation. Well, Ilara said with a smile, "Shall we go make history again?" As they prepared to beam down to the planet, Ilara took one last look at the stars outside her viewport. The galaxy no longer seemed vast and lonely, but full of potential friends and allies, of worlds waiting to be discovered, and cultures eager to be shared. The Void Swarm had sought to consume everything in its path, to reduce the rich diversity of the galaxy to a homogeneous mass. But in the end, it was that very diversity, the unique strengths and perspectives of countless species coming together, that had defeated it. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever new wonders or dangers awaited them in the depths of space, they would face them united. The dawn of a new galactic age had begun, and humanity, once alone in the cosmos, now stood at its forefront, ready to help shape a future brighter than any single species could have imagined. As the transporter beam engaged, Captain Ilara Vega felt a profound sense of anticipation. The greatest adventure of all was just beginning.